Good afternoon and happy Friday, everyone. I am Dr. Tonya Roberson, Chair of the Fire South Chicago Coalition's Health and Mental Wellness Committee, and your host for our Friday Health Talk of the Week. The Fire South Chicago Coalition is comprised of caring community leaders, business owners, and engaged residents working together to make a change and to create a thriving community. We are one band, one sound. Together, the Far South Chicago Coalition has created 9 key focus areas that we will concentrate on together to help create the Far South Chicago Quality of Life Plan. But we need your help. So please download the link on the screen and fill out our survey to help us complete our Quality of Life Plan. The title of today's show is COVID-19, Adjusting to Our New Normal. COVID-19 has claimed millions of lives around the world, but we learn more about this disease every day. It seems as though every time you turn on the television, there's something new to learn about COVID-19. COVID-19 is caused by a new coronavirus called SARS-CoV-2, and there are many types of coronaviruses. Some cause the common cold, and others have led to fatal diseases, outbreaks, and even death. As the pandemic has gone on, new versions of the virus or variants have appeared. Catching the virus is more dangerous for some groups of people. About 40% of Americans have at least one of these risk factors. And scientists are developing tools that promise to slow and eventually help us overcome the pandemic. Normally, it used to take nearly a decade or more to develop a new vaccine, but in this pandemic, scientists have created COVID-19 vaccines in less than a year. Today, we have some great guests from the University of Chicago Institute of Population and Precision Health who will lead this conversation. So I'll turn it over to our moderator, Mr. Ted Williams, who will play a short video and introduce our guest. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Sergeant.
And I'm Brett Edwards. This new video on social media raising coronavirus concerns. Dozens of maskless people packed into a nightclub in the western burbs. CBS 2 investigator Megan Hickey live in Franklin Park. Megan, even those in the music industry are calling the club out.
Right, Brett and Erica, we've been getting complaints from residents and concert promoters alike, and now the Cook County Board of Health is telling me they are investigating. It was advertised as the Chi-Town takeover at the Pier nightclub on Saturday night. Masks required to enter, limited capacity, the invite said, but the public videos tagging the venue show a lot of people. Few are actually wearing masks, and social distancing seems quite difficult.
I'm pretty appalled by it.
Dr. Rachel Rubin of the Cook County Department of Public Health tells me they're investigating the gathering and the organizers will likely be sanctioned.
So we then pass it on to our legal team, and then it gets sent to the state's attorney, and then they review it and decide whether to go ahead with some sort of more, whether it's a fine or bringing them to court, basically.
This is certainly not the only venue trying to stay afloat, albeit against state guidelines.
Oh my God, how is this even possible,
Chicago concert promoter Eddie DeMouth tells me he understands it, but there's a reason he hasn't been putting on large shows.
What's more important? You tell me, Megan. Your health? Your life? Or a couple bucks? No brainer for me.
And Pure Nightclub is far from alone. Just last week, we showed you these videos from a concert in Lombard. Today, the Village told us Brower House was issued a notice, and the State of Illinois Liquor Control Commission and Illinois Department of Commerce are actively reviewing their business operations. Now, just moments ago, the concert promoter called me back. She told me she was in and out of the building on Saturday night, but said that they had precautions in place. She said there were temperature checks at the door and that people were required to wear masks. She also said there was a 50-person maximum. Now, when I told her that there were several videos on social media that appeared to contradict what she was telling me, she said she was not interested in an interview. Live in Franklin Park, Megan Hickey, CBS 2 Investigators.
Well, hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. We are here once again to have our weekly health talk with the Far South Chicago Coalition. Thank you so much to Dr. Roberson for hosting this discussion. And thank you for our guests who I'm going to bring into the room in a second. But as you can see from that video, folks, many people think that the COVID pandemic is over and that people can sort of get back to life as usual. And we're here to talk about how we adjust our lives and how we actually have some level of normalcy in this pandemic, and yet remember still that we are in a major health crisis. And so we have so much to continue to be thinking about and to try to make sure that we are living by the public health requirements that will keep us all safe. So I want to go ahead and bring in my guests who are going to be joining me for this discussion. Remember, if you're watching the show today and you think this information is important, like our page, the Far South Chicago Coalition. Share this with your friends and family. Tell them, hey, they need to be paying attention. They need to be thinking about these things because they're so, so important. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce you guys to our phenomenal panelists. And so I hope that you will have many questions, comments for them today. So here we go. First, we have Dr. Rita Elue. She is a clinical research advanced practice nurse at the Institute for Population and Precision Health at the University of Chicago. I'm a UFC grad, by the way. I just want to make that clear. I see all these UFC titles here. I did my graduate school work there, the Harris School of Public Policy. So I'm super excited to have you guys here. I don't get back to campus much, even though it's only 20 minutes from my house. I still don't get back over there. So I'm super excited to have all of you guys here. She also, she has worked extensively in clinical research. She earned a master's degree in epidemiology and biostatistics from the University of Illinois at Chicago, UIC. And she's a doctorate from DePaul University. So we kind of cover the whole thing, guys. I mean, you got to like her because you got the UIC folks, the DePaul folks, and the U of C folks as well. She is currently working on Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine trial at the University of Chicago. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Next, we have Mr. Andre Jackson. I feel like that that guy, in the Bulls, and they introduce the Bulls when they come down. And now, in number 23 for your Chicago Bulls, Mr. Andre Jackson. And actually, guys, I'm a firm believer we probably should be hyping our community leaders the same way we hype athletes because they're making a big difference. So we should be rooting for these folks because they're making a difference every day. He serves as a marketing analyst for the Institute of Population and Precision Medicine on the precision medicine team at the University of Chicago. He currently helps run the campaigns for the Janssen COVID-19 research trial and the All of Us research project. Welcome, Mr. Jackson. And last but not least, we have Miss Kayla Moore. She's the outreach manager for the Institute for Population and Precision Health at the University of Chicago. She manages and coordinates outreach efforts to the greater Chicagoland community centered around research studies and programs such as the Janssen COVID-19 trial. And All of Us, I need you guys to give them a nice virtual round of applause, a nice social media round of applause. I mean, these guys are awesome and they are making a difference. And so we're going to hop right in this conversation. Once again, throw some comments or questions in the chat box. I promise, I will get to you and we will talk about what is going on here in our community. So once again, we're looking at this question of COVID-19. I want you to know, guys, just this past week on Monday, we had 1,143 new cases in the state of Illinois. This is the fewest new cases since July. We also are at a 7-day average 2.4% positivity rate, and that is the lowest that we've had since June 23rd. So we're moving in the right direction, and yet we see the social challenges that are being faced. So let me go ahead and start with Dr. Elue, and I want to ask her a question. A lot of people are worried about getting vaccinated, right? So they're looking at these things and they go, we want to get back to our regular lives. We are concerned about being vaccinated. How should people decide if they should take the vaccine? Should it become eligible? And how do they know if they're a good candidate, right, for it? And also, should people take the vaccine if they have already had COVID. Can you talk a little about the vaccine for us, please?
Sure. First, I would like to thank you for having me here today. Can you hear me, guys?
Absolutely, we can hear you.
Okay, so thank you for having me on your program. It's an honor to be here. So that's a very good question. As we know, we currently have 3 vaccines here that has been granted emergency use authorization in the US by the FDA. We have the Pfizer vaccine, we have the Moderna vaccine, and we also have Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine. All the 3 companies use an innovative approach in their vaccines development, and they demonstrated completely protection against COVID-19 related hospitalization and death at 14 days post vaccination. So once is your turn I think everybody is a good candidate for this vaccine that we have out there. We've heard from different companies. We've heard about their effectiveness, how effective they have. Based on your question, I think your first question is that if somebody have COVID disease already, should they go ahead and take one? The answer to this is yes. It is recommended that people who have had COVID-19 disease in the past should also get the vaccine. This action will actually enhance your immunity and help you maintain immune longer.
Okay, I want to stop you right there and ask you a
Yes.
question. So, because I would assume, just as a commoner, that once you've had the vaccine, you built the antibodies. I mean, you had the virus. So why would you need to get the vaccine then?
Because a study shows that those who have the natural immunity, it's not adequate because they don't know how long. Researchers have looked into this. They don't know how long the effectiveness of this immunity, like how long are you going to be immune? They don't have it. But when they compare somebody who already have COVID disease, they found that those who have the natural immune, they do not have adequate antibodies in them compared to those who have the COVID vaccines. So that's why they are recommending that people who already have it, that they should go ahead and still take it so that they can provide more immunity to them. And since we don't know how long they are going to be covered for.
Got it. Let me ask you another question. What is different about the approach or development for the COVID-19 vaccine than others, right? So I hear, out on the streets, I mean, I don't know what the streets are these days. I'm in my house all the time, but, I hear people talking maybe on social media. They go, well, this vaccine came so quickly and, how can we trust it? And, I know that you know a ton about this, the Moderna vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine. How is the approach or the development for the COVID-19 vaccine different from other vaccines?
Thank you so much. Great question. Thank you for that question. So all the 3 companies that have been approved have used an innovative approach in their vaccine development, and they, like I said, they demonstrated a complete protection against COVID-19, and there is no steps that was skipped. The reason why we were able to get this vaccine developed so quickly is because of the advancement that we see in science today. We have people all over the world who collaborated globally, and we also have the cooperation of the government across the world, which led to a faster than normal development of the timeline for COVID vaccine. But I want to reassure you that there was no steps that was skipped when it comes to getting the COVID
Okay.
vaccine
So
developed.
you're saying there were no steps that were skipped, which is important. And then, I've heard people say, well, this is a trial, right? We're kind of the guinea pigs on this thing. Can you help us? Can you clarify that for us too? So
Yeah. Sorry, could you repeat that? The last.
Yeah, no. So it's okay. You don't have to. But I think what she's saying, and I think it's important for the audience listening to hear this, is that there were no steps that were skipped in this process. So there are a lot of folks that believe, my goodness, this vaccine, we're kind of the guinea pigs in this vaccine, and that sort of thing. And that is just not true, correct?
Absolutely. That is not true.
Okay.
First of all, let me explain a little bit about the differences in the COVID, the three vaccines that we have there. So the differences between these three vaccines is that with Johnson & Johnson vaccine, this is a adenovirus vector vaccines, while the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines are mRNA based. So the Johnson & Johnson approach use modified adenovirus vector to directly deliver the genetic instruction into a person's cell to provide a robust immune response. This immune response protects the recipient from future encounters with coronavirus. Let me talk a little bit about the Pfizer and the Moderna approach. For those vaccines, that's the Moderna and Pfizer, both of them, they use the mRNA technology in their development of the vaccine. So in this technology, when a person receives this mRNA-based vaccine, the messenger RNA tells the person's cell to make the spike protein that stimulates the immune system and consequently help fight future coronavirus. So the Pfizer and the Moderna COVID vaccine require a person to take 2 shots. The Johnson & Johnson, in contrast, their COVID vaccine require only a single shot.
Got it. Thank you so much for that. I think that's wonderful information to clarify. So, all right, I'll pull Mr. Andre Jackson and Ms. Kayla Moore in on this conversation. So, Mr. Jackson, why? I mean, we know lots of folks have different thoughts about this, but if someone was afraid to take the vaccine, right? And this is kind of the work you do every day. And I think Dr. Elue, she kind of really gave us the medical knowledge around this. What would you tell someone who's afraid to take the vaccine? What are some of the reasons people are telling you they don't want to take it? And how do you counter that? Oh, I'm sorry. I 1 second. I apologize. There you go. But
thank you, Mr. Williams. Okay. Well, there's a wide array of things that are problematic with the African American community's beliefs in research, and particularly this particular vaccination. Historically, we've as a community been exposed to such travesties such as the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, and that alone left a damaging relationship amongst Black people and the medical community. Most people are reluctantly mistrustful of medical research and taking vaccinations and taking any type of participation in medical research due to what they feel will be nefarious reasons. And that's understandable due to the inhumane methods that were used throughout our community in the very past. People feel like they're going to be guinea pigs. People feel like this is just another ploy. So that's the talking points that we're receiving a lot, that I'm seeing. And of course, with social media's conspiracy theories, questions about the saline vaccinations of government leaders, microchips, alternating DNA, and infertility. And all of that is proving to be false. And we have to, I feel the best combat that and overcome is just to educate yourself on what the vaccination is, as opposed to learning through social media campaigns and falsities of just false claims. I personally polled my friends and family over this through my own personal social media, and I received the same backlash of, well, who wants the vaccination and who doesn't?
Yeah, I mean, it's a real fear, right? I mean, it really is. You know, I know that in the medical community, you all know better, okay? But the truth is, it's a real fear. There's a lot of distrust of the federal government, particularly when it comes to people of color. If you're a court case and you figure out whether the person that was being tried had good character, and you went through and looked at their history, you go, "Whoa, this situation, we have every reason not to trust this person." And I think that you look at America in that way. And so this misinformation campaign, just sort of endemic in the African American places as well, is a big issue. And I appreciate everything you guys are saying. We have to really, really double up on these efforts to help people understand that that this is for our benefit. And so it's important to get that word out. I thank you for doing that. Ask you, Ms. Moore, I want to ask you the question. You know, how are they prioritizing the rollout of this vaccine, right? How do you decide who's getting the vaccine first? I was just in a conversation with someone yesterday, and I forget, I think they were on the East Coast, and they got the vaccine because they were a teacher. That's not necessarily happening here. And so how is this rollout prioritized? Who gets it first? And explain that to us, please. Oh, I'm sorry. That's all my fault. Sorry, guys. There you go.
Oh, thanks a lot, Ted. So the guidelines for the vaccine prioritization, they're largely based on the recommendations of the CDC, but some of those, finer points, they will vary by state. We're just set up in that sort of country, but they are largely based on the CDC recommendations. So phase 1A, which is what started last year in late December, were frontline healthcare workers and adults that were living in long-term care facilities. And essentially, what they're basing these recommendations on are who is the most at risk of, one, actually contracting COVID-19, and two, having the most complications if they do contract COVID-19. So that's essentially what they're basing these tiers off of. So we're currently in most places, especially here in Illinois, we're in phase 1B, which is other frontline essential workers. So that includes a long list. There's firefighters, police officers, corrections officers, grocery store workers, and that does include teachers, school staff, and support workers. And that also included people that were 75 and older. And we've sort of transitioned now into phase 1C, where we're starting to vaccinate people that are 65 and older. So they dropped it by about 10 years. And we're looking, and in about sometime during this month, sometime during late March, if not already, things are changing every day, Illinois will be fully entering phase 1C. So that not only includes the people that are 65 and older, but people that are 16 to 64 that have underlying medical conditions. So that means that if they were to contract COVID-19, then there's a very high likelihood that they will have additional complications with their health. So that also would include other essential workers as well. So people in transportation, such as bus drivers, people for the CTA, other essential workers that we don't necessarily think about in terms of face-to-face, but are essential to our functioning of society. So people that work in IT, people that work with law, public safety, public health. And so we're sort of going day by day, not just based on what is going on here in Illinois, and even closer here in Chicago, but we also do have to follow those guidelines of the federal government. But again, things are changing every day.
Well, let me ask you this then, on that question of the federal government, how are we making sure that the rollout is equitable?
So that is mostly up to the governing parties to be able to actually uphold that. But at the same time, we as a people that we pay into our taxes to make sure that these services are available to us. We have to make sure that we are actually paying attention and that we're demanding that what is supposed to be happening as far as vaccine rollout, as far as, COVID relief in a lot of other instances is actually happening.
Right.
And that sounds like, that's putting too much of the work on us. And in a lot of instances, that work is placed onto us, and it should not be.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that communities are doing a lot in that respect to make sure that they are staying safe.
So, I mean, it's crazy because marginalized communities, communities of color in this country, are getting it from both ends, right? So on the one hand, people don't want to take the vaccine because they're afraid of it. On the other hand, when they want to take the vaccine, they're worried about the inequalities, right, in distribution. And so, I saw this information on the news recently that the president, our former president, not our current president, but the president, number one, was much sicker than people thought when he had COVID-19. And number two, the vaccine at a pretty early stage, and that was not sort of acknowledged. And so a lot of folks feel like, oh, well, you're gonna be rich and all the other kind of things to get the vaccine. So there are challenges on both sides. Now, Mr. Jackson, you're doing research. Can you tell us about the research studies that you are running and how they should participate in the work that you're doing?
Yes, sir. So as Dr. Elue said earlier, we're working with the Johnson & Johnson / Janssen research trial. And that is a trial for anybody who's interested, 18 and up. You can come in if you had COVID or not COVID, and participate in the research for the development and strengthening the vaccination, I believe. From what I realize is when people want to decide on doing this research study, you should decide if the vaccination is something that you want to participate in for the betterment of everyone. So, and what I mean by that is, it's a step forward to rolling out where we want to make sure that we're safe amongst people who are affected by the vaccine or by COVID, or who fall into the category of high risk or pre-existing conditions in which the virus can take their life. I'm not going to hold punches with it. Like, the coronavirus is a killer. So for most people, and we want to make sure that you get that vaccination in and help prevent that and help preventing the spread of it. I mean, before the coronavirus pandemic, our nation seen diseases that were just as dangerous before vaccination was found. You had diseases like smallpox, mumps, measles, polio. They were on par of what this virus is doing and killing human beings. And through medicine, the vaccinations were developed, and now most of those are eradicated or very, very minuscule cases. So that's one thing that you want to take into consideration.
Which I think is a very important. I think it's a very important point that you just made, because people like to compare this to other diseases. Talking to my students the other day about how the flu, and correct me if I'm wrong, I read that there are about 35,000 people that die every year from the flu, and people try to sort of compare what we're dealing with the coronavirus, and we had about close to 10 times that many people die from the coronavirus in this first year. So this is not the flu, folks. This is not an extreme flu. This is literally, there is really no comparison. Dr. Elue, how many people have been vaccinated so far?
So we do have, first, according to our CDC vaccine tracker, we have about 110 million doses that have been delivered across the country, and nearly 82.6 million have been administered as of March 4th. That's as of yesterday. This means that of the 331 million total of United States population, approximately 25% of the adult population have received both coronavirus doses.
I'm sorry, what percentage again of the population?
About 35% of the adult population have received this so
You said
far.
25%?
Yes.
Interesting. That seems
So this
awfully
is
high.
this is according to CDC vaccine tracker. This is what was reported.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that seems a lot thought it would be. But that's wonderful.
But that's for the whole United States. But when it comes to the city of Chicago, is totally different. Chicago is a home to about 12.7 million residents in 50 wards. So as of yesterday, we have over 584,000 Chicagoans that have been vaccinated, and more than 386,000 people have received the first dose, and this constitutes to about 14.4%. So about 14% here in Chicago have received their first dose.
Okay. I want to come back to Ms. Moore and Mr. Jackson on this question about being involved in these research studies. So, Ms. Moore, why is it important to be involved in these studies? And Mr. Jackson was just talking about what are the risks, right? And what are the benefits?
So, overall, holistically, Black people being involved in research, and I'm going to talk specifically about Black people. I know that's our audience. Us being involved in research, overall, it provides the information and it provides the data needed to make treatments, such as a vaccine, more effective and more widely available for everyone, actually, including the Black community. But to put it plainly, if we're not involved in that research, then the treatment, whatever it may be, it might not work for us. So, for example, Black people have some of the highest rates of uncontrolled hypertension, high blood pressure. And ACE inhibitors is one of the treatments that is used to treat this the most. But it's been shown that ACE inhibitors don't always work in Black people in a lot of cases. But that is still the most common thing that's prescribed for this. So there's not too much research around what is specifically effective for us. So it's very important that we are included. And it's also important that we're included on both sides of that research. So not just us being involved in actually being a part of the testing, but us being involved in the other side and being involved in the actual scientific inquiry of it, being involved on the medical side as doctors and nurses and as researchers, or as Andre and myself, as part of the outreach and marketing team for the research in general. So specifically for research around COVID, one of the benefits is that it provides the opportunity for people to receive a vaccine more quickly than they would with just the normal rollout. Otherwise, additionally, people are compensated for these trials. So it's not just purely, you come in and you get a pill or a vaccine or something and that's it. They have to provide your medical care and additional things to that. But research in general also provides a lot of job opportunities to people. People don't really realize that, not only on the medical or operational side, but even in community outreach. I work with a very wonderful group of community ambassadors at the IPPH in technology and management. So there's a lot of room for us to be involved on all sides of that. And of course, there are risks in any research, but it's the job of the research team to be able to fully explain that to the participants. And then you're also able to stop participating at any time. So it's not something that takes away your agency as being a part of a study, for example.
Got it. Dr. Elue, you wanted to add to that question?
Absolutely. So I think it is vital that all races and ethnicity work together to find a cure for or minimize the severity of COVID disease. So if you can remember, the last time we had a devastating epidemic was the Spanish flu in the early 1900s. This wiped out about 40% of the world population. This vaccine gives us an opportunity to reduce the pain and suffering worldwide. So the vaccine that have been found so far they've been very effective We see this in the near eradication of measles and how people are protected every year with the flu shot. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much for that. So, I wanted to come in our comment section that I think is really, really important. Janice Knox says, since children are returning to the on-site model for learning, what is the university's plan to involve children in the COVID-19 clinical trials and or receiving the vaccine? I'd actually like to open that on the floor and open that up to anyone who'd like to answer that, because I've always often thought about that as well. You know, how can we put kids back in school if they're not being vaccinated? Can one of you talk about that, please? Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
I can really mention about that. So at this time, University of Chicago right now, I will speak for, we're not planning on involving ourselves with any trials that do involve children, but in other places around the country and around the world, this is beginning to happen. But of course, it was a little bit more important, of course, to start with the adults, because one, they're the adults. You can't just go around doing, research on minors, of course. But also because children, especially during a time like this in the pandemic, they're mostly around either their families or other adults that they have to be around. So for example, their teachers or the other people that they live with that are adults. So it's especially important to make sure that those adults around them are protected and are, for example, vaccinated. And that sort of creates a little bubble around that child, because there's not going to be very many instances where they're not around another adult if they are somewhere by themselves, for example, at school. So it's important that we make sure that those teachers who are part of this 1B1C group are getting vaccinated so that we can be able to safely send our children back to school. But just to repeat, as of now, we don't have any plans on doing those trials with children, but it is happening in other places.
I also would like to add to that. So we do have Pfizer is currently looking into the children population. The university is involved in adult study for now, but the adult study is when I say adult, I mean adult COVID vaccine with Moderna and Janssen. But when these two vendors, if they started looking into children population, the university will be involved at that time. Currently, Pfizer is the only one that has the lowest age in Pfizer is 16 years and 17 together have been vaccinated. So the adolescent group have been vaccinated. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Mr. Jackson, can you hop in? And I want maybe Ms. Moore, you as well on this. There's as many people don't know sort of what the Janssen trial is, and we kind of mentioned that you guys are working on. Maybe Ms. Moore, if you want to hop on that question, can you tell us a little about that and the difference part one trial and why that matters to our audience?
Yes. So the University of Chicago has been working on the Janssen COVID-19 vaccine trial in a project called Ensemble. So Ensemble Part 1 is what we just wrapped up at the beginning of this year. And essentially, it's just finding out if the vaccine that they are developing, its level of effectiveness, and for how long that immunity lasts afterwards. So Part 2 of this trial is being done just so that we can continue to have data about how effective the vaccine is, and also to sort of make adjustments based on data that has been collected so far. And so because it is continuing, then again, it allows the opportunity for more people to be a part of the study, and so that they can be vaccinated maybe a little bit earlier than what's allowed under the current rollout guidelines. And ultimately, positive results from this trial can lead to commercial availability of another vaccine. And then that means even more people, throughout the country can be vaccinated more quickly. And people can actually sign up to still be a part of this study and to find out more information about if they're eligible. So if you're 18 years or older And if you're in good and stable health, that doesn't mean that you can't have underlying medical conditions if your symptoms and your signs are stable. And if you've not previously received a COVID-19 vaccine, if you have, that's good on you. But if you are eligible, you will be able to be in the study for up to 2 years and 3 months. You'll have about 10 visits with a study doctor or a clinical research staff. And as a participant, you wouldn't pay for the vaccine, you wouldn't pay for your care related to that trial. And then you're also compensated for your participation, depending on how long you are a part of the trial and in the follow-up. Okay. And if you want more information, if you want to join that, then you can, of course, visit our website that I believe should be visible right now. It's visible to me on my screen. Or you can actually sign up, find more information on our research registry at COVID Vaccine Studies, that's an S at the end, .uchicago.edu.
Got it. Mr. Jackson, you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, Kayla covered it perfectly, like absolutely perfectly. Yeah, so right now, you 18 and up, whether you had COVID or not, you can join. I highly urge people to, because this is going to give opportunity to start investing in our generational health. This is something that I've thought of where we always hear it with generational wealth, where you have a building block to create a vast amount of wealth throughout the rest of your family and community. And we don't think of health as the same as a wealth. So this is something that's taking a step forward to going and creating that wealth / health for our community, and making sure that it's not a one-stop shop, but it's going to be, we're going to be present in different and more research opportunities and more medicines being derived from those research opportunities to affect us in a better way, a more personalized way.
I want to ask each of you a bit of a question, if you don't mind. The work that you all are doing is so important. It literally is life-saving, And I wonder for each one of you why you do this work. All of us have different choices in the work that we do. What is it about this work that appeals to you? And how have you seen it make a difference in other people's lives? That, I think, is a real part of understanding the work that we do and being inspired to sort of see it make a difference. And I would love to hear from any of you who want to answer this, and how have you seen it make a difference?
May I start? I've come from a banking background, from banking as a teller all the way to supervising in marketing and banking. And that was the most dismal thing ever I was doing with my life. So I decided to come on to the University of Chicago and actually apply what I can do and getting the word out about things that are important. But this with health and with the fact that our community as a Black community is very disparaged and very underrepresented, this is something that I definitely could get on board and feel like my skills are worth something. I'm actually a part of something that's going to affect our community in a positive way, as opposed to like shuffling down a checking account to them. So this is something I'm definitely glad to be on.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So I used to work in the car business when I was in college at an internship, a major car company who shall remain nameless, and a scholarship with them. And I remember going to work every day, really using my writing skills and things like that to try to sell more cars across the East Coast where I was. And I remember feeling like, this doesn't do anything for me. And I kind of got into some ministry and some educational work and artistic work. I kind of been in that space ever since. And so I get that, right? I understand that. And it's really cool to see your talent and your interest being fulfilled in this way. Ladies, either one of you want to answer that question for us?
This is a huge opportunity for me to be part of historically underrepresented racial and ethnic minority in clinical trial. So having a clinician and also being a researcher has afforded me the opportunity to be able to come here today and speak on the issue that really matter, and also be able to provide awareness, improve awareness and provide education for clinical trials, and also facilitate greater trust and access and participation in the community that I belong.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and give it to you, Ms. Moore, as well. This was round us out here. How about you?
Really working here at the university and working in public health, working in research. It's sort of combining all of those sort of things in my personal life that I feel are important, but being able to do it as a job, that makes sense. So I love being able to talk to people. I love helping people learn. I love teaching people. That might just be a little bit of a big sister complex that I have, but I love being able to help people, learn and realize things that maybe they didn't know before. And, coming from a science background, things get very complicated, and not everybody knows how to explain that to people. And not everybody knows how to explain it in a way that makes sense to them and makes it seem as important as it needs to be. And if I'm able to be a part of a group or a part of a profession in general that's able to help more with that, I love being able to do that. I love being on the science side of it. I love being on the outreach side of it. And I think that it also gives an example for people. Some people just need that one person in their life to do something for them to realize maybe this is something that I should be considering, or maybe that's not as bad a thing as I realize. And that's something that I was realizing as I was working on the COVID research trial, when I got my vaccination myself, and when I shared it with people, in my family, and shared it on Facebook. And I was starting to see those sort of wheels turning, and to see, I'm making a little bit more of an impact than maybe I thought I was. And so if it's not just me, if it's myself, Andre, Dr. Elue, and so many other people working on this, then just imagine how much more of an impact that we can make.
Thank you so much for that. So I'm a bit of a Dr. King and or whatever you want to call it. Dr. King has a quote or two that I think are really relevant to this part of the conversation that we're having. He said that everybody can be great because everybody can serve. And I think what you all are doing is really that. You are being great in our community because you're serving our community. That requires a level of specialty, a specialization that many folks don't have, right? Understanding healthcare, understanding how that interfaces with community, I think is so critical. And I think also, the relevant quote that I was thinking of with Dr. King, where he says that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. And when you are fighting these health fights, to Mr. Jackson's point, I can definitely relate to his feelings there. When you see all these issues, you want to do something. And so you all get the opportunity to do something, which I think is fantastic and very, very important. I'm going to give each one of you guys an opportunity just to give our audience a final thought, if you will, about this issue, this question. Dr. Elue, I want to start with you because we started with you in the beginning, and I want to start with you towards the end as well here. What if you had, the entire community, the South Side of Chicago was listening to you? They're not, or we're getting there, hopefully. What would you say to them around this issue of vaccination, around this issue of protecting themselves from COVID? What would be the thing that you'd want to leave our audience with to really understand about this issue of what they ought to be doing to keep themselves and their families safe?
I will like to encourage everyone to go ahead and take the COVID-19 vaccine that is out there. All three of them are very effective. This action will or may enhance your immunity and help you remain immune. And although a lot of people are hesitating about this, I want to reassure them that no part of the science was skipped. And for those who are already been exposed to COVID vaccine, that they already got COVID disease, that they got the natural occurrence of that, I also want to encourage them that they need to go ahead and take that, since we do not know how long the natural immunity will protect them for. I will also would like to encourage everyone to adhere to all the recommended protective measures, including and not limited to wearing a mask and other job specific PPEs, maintaining social distancing, and be able to practice our hand hygiene. We should continue to avoid crowds and poorly ventilated spaces. And if you think you have COVID, or you have COVID disease, or you have the COVID symptom, please, you need to isolate yourself. And for all those who got vaccinated, the fight is not over yet. So please continue to maintain all the measures that has been recommended by CDC.
Excellent point. And I hate to get too political here, but that's what I do partially here. Some states around the country that are relaxing their guidelines right now. They're relaxing their mask mandates. They are opening up businesses. I don't have to tell you what states those are. And you know what we're reminded of by this conversation is we are not out of the woods. If we do not do these things, listen. If we do not do these things, we will not get back to a sense of normalcy at the end of the year, which is kind of predicted by Dr. Fauci and the CDC. You know, kind of end of the year, Christmas, somewhere around there. You know, hopefully we can get back. But if we don't do these things, these new strains of the virus, you know, they'll spread, and we'll still be in trouble. And so the work that they're doing, we ought to be paying attention to very heavily. Mr. Jackson, why don't you go ahead next, please?
Just what I would think to tell the community. I took the vaccine myself, and I'm not going to push anything down your throats to do if I'm not willing to do it myself. And with that said, I have a mother who has pre-existing conditions where if she gets COVID, she will die. And I want to make sure that I am within compliance and within health standards and taking this vaccine to do my part in making sure that she lives and that she's as safe as possible. And I would do that, and I say that for everyone in our community who has pre-existing communities, not just my mother, but my neighbors, anyone could be affected by this. And if I want to do it, everyone should be willing to step up and just do it and have that in mind. This is a communal effort. We are a community we thrive as a community together, and the basis historically upon the strengths of us is as a community. And we need to stand up as a community and take on the responsibility of getting the vaccine, as well as still keeping up with the CDC guidelines and maintaining healthy and safe standards. So this is something that we should step up to the plate and do.
Thank you so much. Ms. Moore.
I definitely echo what Andre and Dr. Elue have been saying. And I guess the one additional thing that I would add is that I hope that moving forward, we as a community, we just learn to be a little bit more cognizant, a little bit more considerate of those around us. COVID has been a really huge example of it may not be you, but it might be someone else. You may not have symptoms, but you may still be passing it on to someone else. And that's applicable not just to COVID-19, but to cold and flu season and to other things. So I just hope that people continue to be considerate of the health of those around them and how it can really affect them, especially those in your family, but everyone around you. And that I hope we can continue to just be a little bit more clean and a little bit more sanitary in the way that we move forward with living our day-to-day lives. And whenever we do get back to normal, whatever that normal is, we might be continuing to live our new normal. That's the title of our, that's the title of our show. I had to throw that in there. Whatever our new normal continues to be, I hope that we can continue to work together and, to just make it better than it was.
Fantastic. I'm going to bring Dr. Roberson in here in a second, but I do want to give Dr. Elue a word. You want to add to Dr. Fauci's recommendations. You want to say something about that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ted. So I just want to repeat what he said, which is very great and important, that this is a global pandemic and that it requires a global response. That means we all are responsible. And when people are talking about the herd immunity, Dr. Fauci mentioned that in order to get to attain a herd immunity level of this magnitude infection, we need to vaccinate about 70 to 85% population needs to be vaccinated, which is a lot. So I want everyone to go out there and get vaccinated so that we can minimize any variation or any variant viruses that are trying to come up, that we can stop that infection from spreading. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Dr. Elue, Miss Kayla Moore, and Mr. Andre Jackson, we want to say thank you, and thank you. You guys have been a fantastic group. We'll have you. I'm going to turn now to Dr. Roberson, who is going to close us out. Thank you all for educating and inspiring our audience today. And I'm really hoping that this information will save lives. That's why we do this weekly health talk with the Far South Chicago Coalition. And I believe that this will work. And so I'm grateful. Once again, visit the Far South Chicago Coalition, the Facebook page, complete the quality of life plan. These things are all very important. If you learned something from today and felt inspired by today, let's step up. Let's take some action to make our communities better. Thank you. Thank you. And now to Roberson.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you all out to all of our listeners for tuning in to our Friday Health Talk of the Week. I want to thank our wonderful guests from the University of Chicago's Institute of Population and Precision Health for an excellent and very informative show. We are so grateful for them and their expertise. And please remember, listeners, in the words of my 83-year-old mother, we all have the choice to take one of the COVID-19 vaccines, but we have no choice on whether we'll get coronavirus. We'll be back next Friday to discuss women's mental health, facts, symptoms, and resources. I'd also like to thank our listeners for tuning in today. And also remember, listeners, we want to hear from you. We want to invite all of our guests to contact the Far South Chicago Coalition. If you have been influenced, as Ted said, by our show, or if you have any comments, please call us, visit our Facebook page, like us, comment about this Facebook Live, and even request a show topic that you would like to learn more about. And last but not least, please take our survey and help us to develop our quality of life plan. This show was sponsored by the Health and Mental Wellness Committee of the Far South Chicago Coalition, which is spearheaded by our president, Ms. Dr. Joyce Chapman. This show content was produced by Dr. Tonya Roberson and directed and moderated by Mr. Ted Williams III. Have a great weekend, everyone.